Warning. The following podcast is utter nonsense and may cause agoraphobia, kleptomania, insomnia, and oppositional defiance disorder. We are required by law to provide you with this disclaimer for hazardous materials.
Welcome back to another at-home edition of Hazardous Materials. Last week's comic this week, even though there aren't any last week's comics, and they ain't here this week. So we're going to give you what we've got, which is news about upcoming stuff. We found out about new distributions, and we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Miracle 12 issue.
I know it's blurred through my screen, but it's the fancy hardcover they did for the series when it was all wrapped up, which I had to get a second printing of because they didn't do nearly enough of the first run. So if you can track it down, amazing buy.
Yes,
but we'll get to that later.
Yes, but these 12 issues were done by Tim King because apparently Gideon is a big Tim King.
I'm a Tom King fanboy, along with
Tom King. See,
along with his frequent collaborator Mitch Gerrits, who did the art in this. He's doing Strange Adventures right now. They did Sheriff of Babylon together and a couple of Batman one-offs. But this is definitely their masterpiece. I love this book. I'm excited to talk about it. But we got to do some.
Get into that. Gideon, you've got some news about new distribution.
I do. So both Marvel and DC have released their release plans for the next couple of months, and I'm going to run those through right now because I got them pulled up.
And this is actually pretty important news.
Yeah. On the DC side, starting on Tuesday, May 5th, we've got Batman the Outsiders number 12, a reprint of DC Superstars number 17, Flash 753, Green Lantern Season 2 number 3, which I'm very excited for, Hawkman number 23, House of Whispers number 20, Joker Harley Criminal Sanity number 4. Then Tuesday, May 12th, we've got Harley 72, Justice League 44, Justice League Odyssey 20, Lois Lane 10, Metal Men 6. Tuesday, May 19th. And interesting that they're switching over to Tuesday, so we'll see if that's going to remain an industry norm.
Yeah, I guess they got to do. Remember when it used to be Thursday and it switched to Wednesday?
I don't.
Oh, that's in my time.
So for Tuesday, May 19th, we got DC's Unkillables number 3, Dollhouse Family 6, Flash Giant 4, Plunge 3, Jimmy Olsen 10. Very excited for that to return. Red Hood 45, Wonder Woman 755. The third printing of Year of the Villain Hell Arisen number 3, so you can get that tiny punchline appearance. Then Tuesday, May 26th, we're getting Aquaman 59, Basketful of Heads 7, Batman Beyond 43, Books of Magic 19, Flash 754, He-Man number 6, Justice League 45, Lola Woods 5, Mad Magazine 13, Our Fighting Forces Giant, Suicide Squad 5, Teen Titans 41, Trifix 27, Wonder Woman Giant 4. And that is as far as they projected for the DC titles. That's pretty close to their entire line. Nothing really jumped out at me as missing. So at least all the books that I read are still on there. So
yeah, I mean, as far as I understand, the books you're after are like Green Lantern and Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, Green Lantern, Jimmy Olsen, Wonder Woman, Terrific, Suicide Squad.
I'll check out Suicide Squad, but Green Lantern is it's the only one that really grabs my attention. But then again, my DC Devourer list has kind of decreased over the past decade.
I am curious that there's a lack of the main a Batman action detective or Superman.
I was going to say Superman.
Those are some pretty glaring omissions.
Oh.
Well, we'll see. Maybe,
I guess that falls in line with Marvel's omissions, which we're about to talk about.
Yes. So Marvel's plan is basically 2 weeks worth of books, if that, stretched out to a 6-week period. So they're starting a bit later on May 27th with Amazing Spider-Man 43, Avengers 33, Marauders 10, The New Dr. Aphra number 1, and Venom number 25. But interesting enough, Marvel is switching off having trades 1 week and singles another, kind of padding out their weeks even further. So then a couple weeks later, on June 10th, we get Black Cat 11, Daredevil 20, Deadpool 5, Excalibur 10, Miles Morales 17, and New Mutants 10.
Good.
Skip another week again. Rescue number 2 on June 24th. Rescue number 2, the Captain America Marvel Snapshot, which I'm very excited for because it's by my boy Mark Russell. Empire Avengers number 0, Immortal Hulk 34. Very excited for that.
Mhm.
Iron Man 2020 number 4, Spider-Ham 5, Star Wars Bounty Hunters 3, Thor number 5. And then on July 8th, we're looking at Black Panther 8 to Wakanda number 8, Doctor Strange number 5, Empire Fantastic 4 number 0, Ghost Rider 7, Marvel's X4, Strange Academy 2, X-Force 10, and the X-Men God Loves Man Kills extended cut, which I'm kind of leery on just because it's such an iconic story. I don't really know if you need to sell a couple one-shots with framing devices for it,
I'm not hearing a Hellions 2 in there anywhere.
Very surprising, yeah. I feel, or the main X-Men book isn't there as well. So I kind of wonder if it's just stuff that they didn't already have in the can ready to go, or if it's just, like what they can push out. Because again, it's just like 2 weeks worth of books stretched out to a 6 week period.
That's what it sounds like to me, because there's no Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
or no even X-Men Fantastic Four.
But we get 2 Amazing Spider-Man issues, so
Yeah. Well, they were cranking those things out bi-weekly anyway, so
it's
that's
true.
not surprising.
Yeah. And maybe we'll finally get to find out who Kindred is.
Oh God, yeah, they've been milking that thing for years now.
2
years.
I think 2 years, because they're on line number 46.
Yeah.
Come on. Number 50 is probably going to be the big one. And we'll see if society survives.
So, a reflection of the new world that we're in today, as we record this, would have been the premiere night for Black Widow. And I would have had all this lovely, lovely Black Widow knowledge in my head, ready to talk about who Taskmaster is and all this other stuff. But alas, no, I have to wait till November.
But hopefully it'll be worth it. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I'm more excited for it than I am for Eternals.
And we still have no idea what's going on with New Mutants.
Nope. I've seen a lot of people say that should be the sacrificial lamb to test the waters for theaters reopening, and I'm kind of into that idea, because it's like, just so I can see the damn thing.
Yeah, well, like we talked about in a previous episode, Marvel, I believe, is looking to bank on New Mutants much in the way some of these other theaters bank on cheaply made horror movies that appeal to a particular audience.
Got to get that Blumhouse money.
Yep.
Which, speaking of, so Blumhouse, as we all know, revived Halloween a couple years ago with the second best movie in the Halloween franchise. That's my not so hot take, because Halloween 2018 100% rules, and most of the Halloween movies suck.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
HBO announced that they are developing a Hellraiser show with David Gordon Green and his associated production company with Danny McBride. And that's the best news I've heard in years, because I probably mentioned on the show before, I'm a huge Hellraiser fan. Like, Hellraiser is one of my favorite movies ever. Those first 2 movies are damn near untouchable for me. The remaining 8 are more miss than hit. I can't defend most of them, but...
Are you a Pinhead purist? Does the actor in Pinhead's role be important to you?
Yes and no. I think we could have a great new Pinhead, just because Doug Bradley is getting up there in years, and I don't know how willing he is to go back in the makeup especially for a show. That would be quite a considerably longer production schedule than for a movie. But I'd be open to a new Pinhead if it's good. The problem with the Pinheads we've gotten in Hellraisers 9 and 10 is they're not very good. Like, Hellraiser 9, they had to redub the guy, because he was, I think, a model that couldn't speak English, so they just had him stand and...
Oh, they pulled a Ghostbusters too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vigo the Carpathian wasn't even Vigo the Carpathian. I think he was actually voiced by Max von Sydow, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he is Vigo.
Yeah, and by the way, a nice little side note to that is the 2009 Ghostbusters video game has a little what's the word you're looking for here? A secret. If you wander around, my brain is blanking out on the word for it. Anyway, if you wander around the firehouse, you'll find the Vigo painting.
I remember that.
And if you click on it, it will talk to you, and all the lines are done by Max von Sydow.
That's so cool.
It is very cool.
R.I.P. Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, world, that I sold the health of the world for a good Hellraiser franchise, but But I've been starving for good content for longer than I've been alive. I don't think there's been a 100% good Hellraiser property since I was born.
Yeah, I actually have the old Harbor Bay Hellraiser 10 when they were first released in DVD, and it was the only way you could get Hellraiser 2 was because it was a bonus pack in disc.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I would watch my Hellraiser, I'd watch Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2 back to back.
Might have to take a picture of my Hellraiser shelf and attach it to this video, so
yes,
y'all can know I'm not messing around with my Hellraiser love.
Let's see your Hellraiser shelf versus my crazy obsession with Street Fighter art books, which I have like an entire shelf full of them.
It wound up becoming 2 shelves because I've bought too many Hellraiser things.
Oh, really?
And also, people know it's an easy gift. They just give me a lament configuration of some kind, so those have piled up.
Since we got a little bit of time to talk about this, as I reach into my blur, I might have gotten a little crazy.
Casey, you're so far away, I can't even see you anymore.
I might have tapped into Drive-Thru RPG.
Wow.
A little bit.
That's not a responsible use of your stimulus money.
I was like, you know what? I'm fiending. These are all actually books that I have been wanting to get for the past year and a half, and I've never been able to. So
maybe it's time I finally buy some D&D source books instead of Googling every question I have about making a character.
Yeah, so that had to happen. I am now happy with it.
Well, I am pleased that you have a book that's like the height of your torso, or a pile of books the height of your torso.
Yeah, indeed. And this, I gotta showcase this while we're talking about it. This is one of my biggest Ghostbusters things. I have a Tobin Spirit Guide.
Ooh.
And it is no joke.
Wow.
This is actually an English translation of an Italian fan-made Tobin Spirit Guide. This is their second edition. When they went to second edition, they went English. And if anybody's interested in the guy that makes this is still making this, and I'll put a link down in our video. But it includes stuff from Ghostbusters 1, 2, the real Ghostbusters, and the Ghostbusters video game. Yeah, you probably can't see them because
it's blurred out.
Yeah, it's all blurred out, but it's got like stuff.
Hey, it's
the monsters here, the descriptions there. Yeah, I love this thing,
and it loves you with all of its spectral energy. But anyway, I think that's gonna wrap up the pseudo news we had, mostly. Just shit,
our less news, more banter, because damn, news is skim.
Yeah, I wonder what's up with that.
Oh, it's almost like there's some big event going on. So let's dive right into this. Gideon, I'm going to let you kind of give us a summary of what we're about to look at.
So Mr. Miracle is one of Jack Kirby's Fourth World characters. He is the new god of freedom. His name is Scott Free. His backstory is as a part of a peace pact between Apocalypse and New Genesis. Highfather and Darkseid traded their firstborn sons. So Highfather got to raise Darkseid's son Orion, and Darkseid got to raise Highfather's son Scott Free, who he throws into Granny Goodness's war pits to be raised. And of course, Scott escapes every night and gets recaptured. He eventually does escape. He wins the heart of the leader of Granny's female Furies, Big Barda. They run to Earth, where Scott gets a gig as a escape artist, taking the name Mr. Miracle from an existing escape artist who he apprentices under. And that's where he gets the whole garish costume that does still fit in with New God aesthetics.
Yeah, going into this, it pays a little bit to understand Jack Kirby's world that he created. So Jack Kirby, who did an enormous amount of stuff for Marvel, some of the very first stuff for Marvel is all his doing. But in the 70s, he had a bit of a falling out, and he went to DC. And when he went to DC, he's like, you know what, I want to do my own thing. And so he created stuff like the New Gods and Commandy and OMAC and these kinds of titles. And of course, they're all exceedingly Kirby-esque. We got ridiculous 4-color costumes with
giant tech and
yes,
big monsters, square jaws, rectangular mitts.
capes with high collars.
Yes. big buckles on those capes.
And some would even argue the inspiration for Thanos himself, Darkseid. Which, if I understand, Darkseid...
It is not like... Thanos is very much a ripoff of Darkseid. He was supposed to be a ripoff of Metron, but Jim Starlin's editor at the time told him, if you're going to rip off a new god, rip off the good one, Darkseid. So that's why Thanos is all big and chunky and rocky looking.
Yeah, so this issue was... this ran 12 issues, and it feels... in the way it's laid out, because every single page is 9 frames. Always 9 frames. There's no gatefolds. Yeah, there's no gatefolds. There's no fold covers. There's no 4 panels. It's always boom, 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 boom. And it feels almost like Matt Fraction's Hawkeye in its pace, because sometimes you're turning pages like this. Because sometimes they're just doing action while they're talking about how they're going to remodel their house. Like there's a scene where Big Barda and Scott Free are basically on their way to try to destroy. I don't know. It wasn't trying to destroy Darkseid. I think they were trying to. Where were they going when they were talking about breaking down their house? It was they were walking to the execution with Orion. I think it was.
Yes.
Yes. So the entire time, completely oblivious to the world around them. Well, of course, except for the fact they're interacting with it and chopping off heads and splitting. By the way, this book is not for the faint of heart.
It is, pretty gruesome.
There's a character, a long-standing character called Granny Goodness. Granny Goodness is basically, she raises the children of Apocalypse. This is the planet that Darkseid exists on. She basically galvanizes them to become the troops for Darkseid, and she has her own way of doing it. But as you can know in her name, she's Granny Goodness. So she has this very sweet, very grandmother-esque kind of way of talking, but she is a warrior.
Vicious.
Yes, she's exceedingly vicious and very ruthless. And she gets her comeuppance on this. And there is an entire page, I shit you not, an entire page dedicated to somebody sawing off her head with a knife.
I really love, this is my favorite Granny Goodness story, just because I love the way it deals with Scott and Barda's conflicting feelings about her. And it's there's a lot of interesting parallels between like abusers and their abusees and their relationships, and feeling like you can't escape that person no matter, like the big scene for me is when Barda talks to her and just immediately becomes like a scared child again with her. And it's really intense, heavy stuff.
I mean, it's very clear that she raised both Big Barda to become the leader of the Furies and Scott Free to basically be this whipping boy who's constantly escaping and constantly being recaptured by her. But it really comes down to it, he is still her little boy. And even though there's one scene where she's at a peace talk table with Scott and Big Barda, and they're both eating and they're talking very cordially. But right next to Granny Goodness, there's this man who's tied up, and they go, "Is that Stormbringer?" Oh, and she goes, Granny Goodness goes, "Oh yes, this is. I captured him, and I'm starving him to death, and it pleases me for him to watch us eat as we do this." And she's got like Jello, like right in front of him, but he can't reach it. He's just strapped in.
Their furniture is also prisoners of hers. Like they're sitting on like a guy.
Well, very much that sci-fi show where they're teaching kids Deadly Class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember the secret head of that was also using people to hold up stuff. Very Granny Goodness-esque. I'm pretty sure that's where the inspiration that came from.
Yes. So kind of just to get into like what the frame of what the book is like, the opening sequence is Mr. Miracle bleeding out in a bathroom after slashing his wrists, and then he wakes up in a hospital.
This has to be a first. I can't think of any above sea level hero that has his own book who's attempted suicide.
Like explicitly, on the
Explicitly,
first page of their
uncontrolled, unpushed. He did it. I mean, he had reasons for doing it. Most like people do when they go through this, and they're usually selfish reasons. But I mean, to see one of DC's most big time heroes do this, I don't think I've ever seen that in a book.
It's certainly a bold opening. There's a lot of interesting subtext stuff there with escaping life they open up with, because his whole thing is escape. What's the one thing he can't escape? And it turns out it's duty, because while he's at home on Earth with Barda, he gets summoned by Orion to come and help the war effort out, especially with the news that Highfather has died.
Yeah.
That's a big part of them getting Scott to go and show up and help out with the never-ending war on Apocalypse and New Genesis. But throughout the first issue, you get this refrain starting off with one panel per page, but increasing in tempo until it's a full page spread of Darkseid is, which is one of
the only time you get a full page is that big black page of Darkseid.
Where it's just, and it's the same size of font, it's still a small one panel size font, but it's just sea of blackness, and it's just this haunting reminder of what makes Darkseid scary, is that he is as long as there is hate and evil and rage in people's hearts, he will always exist. And that's this specter hanging over Scott throughout the book, because they bring back the Darkseid is throughout the series. I've probably worn my t-shirt on the show a couple of times of the panel.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have a roommate who was a big fan of Darkseid, and when he'd come in for work, our greeting would be "Die for Darkseid." I would just be sitting here at my computer, and he'd walk by in the hallway, go into his room, going, "Die for Darkseid." And I'm like, "Die for Darkseid."
There's a fun panel from a Final Crisis that's been making the rounds again of it's in a factory after Darkseid takes over the world, and there's a banner that says, "To die on the job is to die for Darkseid." Become depressingly relevant again.
He's just, I mean, I've noticed that whenever they talk about Darkseid, they never truly call him evil. They don't use that as a descriptor, because it almost seems like he transcends evil. He's not evil in the biblical, satanic, devilish sense, even though he's essentially the devil of this.
He is the god
cosmos.
Yeah,
but he's never called evil. He's called Darkseid. It's almost like he transcends it.
Yeah,
he's bigger than that.
His Darkseid, conceived as the ultimate fascist by Jack Kirby, he is a haunting figure. One of my favorite things about Darkseid doesn't come up a lot, and I don't remember if they really touch on it in Mr. Miracle, because unfortunately I didn't get a chance to reread this. I'm just kind of flipping through to refresh my memory. But Darkseid is a coward. In the original New God stuff, he is running away constantly. Whenever there's time for a fair fight to happen, he just runs away. And that's, I think, an interesting character piece about him that doesn't really get a lot of play in modern Darkseid stuff. I feel like the temptation is to have him run out and go a few rounds of the Justice League, when I think it's much more interesting when he is this kind of insidious presence. That's Darkseid stuff when he just shows up on your couch reading a book. That's the scariest Darkseid.
Well, as influential as Darkseid is supposed to be in this world and in the lives of the main characters, you never see Darkseid until the last two issues.
Yeah, he is omnipresent tonally in the book, but he does not have a physical presence until the last act. But who boy is the good Darkseid stuff, and we'll get to it, because there is a Chairside-esque Darkseid moment in it. Yeah,
there's the cover of the book where he actually finally shows up is big, basically a big, bold, three color portrait of Darkseid, which we're
photo negative
here.
Photo cover.
Yeah, and it looks great.
It's one of my favorite Darkseid covers. Nick Darrington was on covers for this series, and he kills it throughout. And Mitch Gerrits did the B covers, and I had to do one of my least favorite things, but I had to do it, is buying 2 copies of each issue, because I couldn't leave a Darrington or a Gerrits cover. I was they're all too damn
I don't know what you're talking about, having bought 6 copies of Spider-Woman #1.
But yeah, so the the book shifts between Barda and Scott going from their home on Earth and dealing with some big changes, like Barda being pregnant is a major thing in the book, while also dealing with the war on New Genesis, where Orion has become High Father. But Orion's much more antagonistic than he normally is, which is one of the many hints in the series of things might not be exactly what they seem. Because Orion normally is a pretty surly, fighty guy, but there's definitely much more of his dad in him in this book than he's ever had.
It almost seemed out of character because Orion, having taken form of the Allfather, is asking people, okay, now that I'm in charge, I want to follow the old rules that my father didn't follow. Like when you come to my presence, you bow. Or, since I am now Allfather, my word is law and no one can supersede me. So when we have a trial, I am the prosecutor and the defender, the judge and the executioner, because no one can have word over me.
Which, speaking of, Bug gets killed.
Yeah,
Forager.
A Forager from the Teen Titans is in this, in his, of course, Jack Kirby version. And he gets completely annihilated by Light Ray, who is a bitch, by the way. I do not like Light Ray.
I love traditional Light Ray. I think he and Orion are one of those great duos like Blue Beetle and Booster Gold or Luke Cage and Iron Fist for me. But yeah, in terms of that's one issue I've seen people have is a lot of the New Gods not being super in character, but I think the book more than justifies it with the where the story goes.
I thought it was so out of character, to be quite honest with you, that I thought this was all one of those, hey, we've trapped you in your mind kind of routine. And it was so pervasive. That feeling was so pervasive, especially with the fact that every once in a while, characters who may not be there were glitching out. And then characters that really were there also glitching out.
That's one of my favorite techniques in the book is Mitch Gerard's adding that like kind of glitchy filter to panels when Scott gets kind of maybe too close to something or something's trying to alert him that things aren't as they appear.
Especially when Big Barda's eyes go from blue to brown.
Yes. There's a lot of inconsistencies like that with the shower scene's a big one. Where
when turn this shower on for me. Well, Motherbox says the shower's already on. Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm clean.
Scott's disassociation is such a fascinating character choice in the book that plays into a lot of really interesting story decisions throughout. Love this book. I'm flipping through.
While we're heaping praise on this one, I'm going to heap some praise on the artistic choice of drawing Big Barda the way a tall woman proportionally would look like.
Yeah. Barda looks amazing. A huge pet peeve of mine is when people draw her at the same height or shorter than male heroes. No, she is Big Barda. She needs to be a head taller than everyone.
She's a good head and shoulders taller than Scott. It's always been done that reason. And as such, she has a lot of muscle mass to her.
Mitch Gerard draws a gorgeous Big Barda.
This is no skinny waif that they've stretched out to be 6'6". This is a very thick and muscular woman. And even when she like sits down, you know how very large and muscular people, when they sit down, they get that little bump on her stomach. That's just unavoidable no matter what you do. Hers is there. I thought that little real world addition was not only bold, but kind of cool. I mean, everyone's always wanting to, so many artists just want to create flat stomachs, no matter what you're doing, perfect butts, perfect shoulders, no matter what position they're in, because it's comic books. But the person who drew this obviously think, you know what, if a person was that big, what would they look like if they had a half short and they were sitting down? They'd have a little frumpy stomach a little bit there. And he drew that consistently.
Mitch Gerard's absolutely excels at life drawing. Like, I was introduced to him not from his Punisher work, which I think was his first big 2 work, but in Sheriff of Babylon, he did also with Tom King, which was a very dark, super like photorealistic, well, not super photorealistic, but like his style of a Iraq war story. And so some of my favorite sequences in this book are when he's just doing like street stuff with Scott and Barda. Like I pulled up the scene where a fan runs into them when they're having lunch and asks for a selfie.
Oh yeah.
There's the I love you too. Like, you don't understand. I love Big Barda. And Barda responds with, doesn't everyone? And
I'm glad that they walked away from the trope of somebody walking up to a power couple and only engaging the popular one and saying, here, hold the camera. And when I saw her do that, handing Big Barda the camera, it's like, oh, great, we're going with that trope. And then when she recognizes Big Barda, she goes, oh, no, everybody get in on this. I'm like, good for you.
And the best selfie face ever. And
this one.
Yeah. This character, Tessa, actually shows up in Strange Adventures #1. She's one of the people in line getting a book signed by Adam Strange. So a fun little continuity bit.
That's right. We did.
Yeah.
We looked at that. She is definitely a fangirl.
And in this same issue, we get one of my favorite New God characters, Jack Kirby's middle finger to Stan Lee, Funky Flashman.
I was about to bring that up because man, does Funky Flashman spit out everything that Stan Lee does. I mean,
God.
There's no way around it.
And now, Funky Flashman proudly presents the X-Pit Executioner, the Granny Goodness Gutter, everyone's favorite escape artist, the sensational Scott Free.
I like how he walks right up to Scott Free just out of nowhere and goes, Excelsior!
Yeah, one of my favorite classic New Gods bits is it's Funky Flashman's introduction, and he does this whole razzle-dazzle spiel, and it's him after the presentation taking off like his hair and beard as this one giant solid piece and putting it aside. Which was not a super subtle stab from Kirby's position.
No,
and I don't blame him at all. Like,
and
you can go back and read interviews from Kirby.
They kill Funky Flashman the first time he appears in his book.
I don't think so.
There's a scene where Big Barda hits him with a cosmic rod.
He definitely gets a couple lumps thrown at him, but I don't think he dies because he's in the final issue. He sticks around. But I mean, a lot of characters do that. So.
Yeah, I mean, shit.
But rolling around.
Is it because I know Metreon's been dead for a while and he's in this?
Yeah, this book doesn't particularly care about what was going on in the main at the DC universe at large, and frankly, that's for the best because I'll say it, DC doesn't really know what to do with the New Gods most of the time. Most of the time, they just have them do punchy stuff in Justice League, and that sucks. It's the worst use of the character.
Oh god, well, I'm gonna rib off my favorite whipping boy, the Green Lantern writer who will remain unnamed because I've already dragged through the mud a few times.
Yeah, you talking about the God Hand?
I'm talking about the time that out of nowhere, the New Gods decided, oh well, we're gonna destroy the Green Lanterns, not stop them, not disband them, kill them, out of nowhere, completely off character.
Now,
and that's all this shit is basically the New Gods saying, oh well, we're just gonna do this.
It was very bizarre, but I did like Becca becoming a Sinestro Corps member. I
enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But then the whole thing ends with, it was like the worst trope imaginable for resolving this was all misunderstanding. We're sorry. I'm like, seriously? and then because the Indigo Tribe betrays the Green Lanterns halfway through this with no explanation, no resolution in the years since this story has gone out as to why they did it, and we haven't ever seen them again.
Every day you make me more and more glad that I stopped reading Green Lanterns when Johns left, and I started reading again when Green Lanterns came out. Good decision.
When I was talking about the fact that this guy has dismantled everything that Johns made great about all the lanterns, I wasn't lying. It's so painful to watch him do it with such abandon. Just effortless. Hey, we got these really cool characters. I don't really care for them. Let's kill off all the blues. Let's make the Indigos all traitors with absolutely no explanation. Let's pair up the Green Lanterns with the Yellow Lanterns, but then let's break it up with the most contrived and off-character storyline we can think of involving one of the most sympathetic Green Lanterns ever, Serrano. Yeah, and then we're not going to resolve that either. We're just going to throw that out there. And Sinestro is like doing his own thing with this new ring, which we're not really going to get into that much.
Yeah, let's say we've gotten pretty wildly off topic.
I know, but man, you know how much I truly love Green Lantern. I mean, I've got a lantern ring right here in this box. And when I talk about all the things I love about it, and this writer has destroyed all of it, I just get mad.
And well, looping it back around, he and Johns both have it in common that they cannot write the New Gods worth a damn. Yeah. So let's talk about good New Gods. So, one of my favorite sequences of the book is probably the best sex scene I've ever read in comics. It's so Mr. Miracle's whole thing is he's an escape artist, and Big Barda is a very tall, buff woman. So their sex life has been pretty obvious what their deal is. But I'm very glad that we get it official with
of course the page is blurred. Yeah. So we're gonna have Rob, our producer, put this up.
But yeah, Scott 100% gets tied up and has his Mr. Miracle mask over his crotch, which feels like a nice little homage to Hawkeye's creative censoring.
Yes, Matt Fraction. I still firmly stand by the fact that Matt Fraction has a deep influence on the artistic direction of this book.
Well, that would be David Aha, not Matt Fraction. Matt Fraction is not an artist. He is an artist.
You know what I'm talking? I'm talking about the artistic direction. I didn't say the art.
You did say the art.
Oh, shut up. You know what I meant.
But regardless, amazing sequence that leads into Barda being pregnant. And Funky Flashman manages to finagle his way into being their babysitter.
Yes.
Which, when he leaves a little Batman plushie in the crib, leads to the now iconic Batman Kills Babies panel.
Yeah, I know. I really
kill babies.
I actually started to really enjoy Funky Flashman, especially during the scene where they're talking about the story that they created. Mm-hmm. And Scott's like, he can only say 6 words. What are you talking about? He provides a story. I provide the words. Direct Jack Kirby reference right there. Also, let's talk about some of the other Easter eggs that were hidden in this thing. Like I don't know if you're too young enough for this, Gideon, but I know our producer Rob, who's more my age, will remember the show Dallas.
I know Dallas.
Okay,
I'm familiar with Shooting JR.
Oh, okay. So you understand that Patrick Duffy's character was killed off in Dallas, mm-hmm. and their contrived way of bringing him back was saying that the scene he was killed, the season he was killed in was one gigantic dream, and like his wife or girlfriend or whatever it is wakes up and goes into the shower, and he's like, "Hey, good morning." He's like, just there, alive, and they do that with Scott. You know, when Big Barda walks in, and it's like, is it beat for beat as she's taking off her stuff? He's like, "Good morning." It's like, wow, they slipped a Dallas reference in here.
The problem, I'd say, most surprising place to see a Dallas reference.
Yeah, I didn't expect that one. But yeah, all the stuff going with Funky Flashman being Stanley. I mean, more in appearance, also in the way he talks, and obviously just in the story hooks. And the story he talks about, the Sun Eater, the story that he and Jacob came up with, I thought was really cool.
There's another great issue is when Big Barda gives birth and the female Furies all are just chilling in the hospital.
Yeah. What's the name of that weird green Fury that rhymes and is just completely manic?
That's Mad Harriet.
Mad Harriet, it seems like she's just one slight push away from going crazy and killing all the killed kids in that place.
Yeah. I love the female Furies. I will. I could talk about length. They're some of the best villains in DC's pantheon. They should have been the villains of the Justice League movie. Much more interesting than Steppenwolf, and there's like 5 of them.
Yeah. I like how that larger Fury is like sitting right next to Mad Harriet when Mad Harriet's just going off on herself, and she goes, "Ooh."
Stompa's great. Lashina is great. Bernadette is the best name for a character ever. Like,
yeah, that's Desaad's sister, right?
Yes.
Yes, this is a knife. I'm lending it to you. You give it back to me, I'm going to kill you with it at some point. I like how completely cordial the enemies can be.
Yeah.
With this,
because they've been fighting for thousands of years.
It's practically their nature. They're just like taking a break at this point. We're gonna take 5 days to hang around and jump into the fire lakes and enjoy the food and all that kind of stuff, and then we're gonna go back and yell at each other.
Like, it can't be understated how much of a farce the peace truce between Apocalypse and New Genesis was. Like, they were still doing like raids on each other, just being secret about it.
Big Barda had no interest in it whatsoever. All she cared about is like, at some point I just want to kill Caliban. And the fact that they weren't able to, she's like, we'll get him next time.
Which I think is another interesting point from this book is the notion of the Forever War, which Tom King, being an Iraq War veteran, is certainly familiar with.
Yeah, that was another thing that really threw me off about Orion's characterization on this, is how many people he was willing to sacrifice for the war.
Lightray shoots a baby parademon. Like,
yeah, what's up with that? Or the fact that Forager and 250,000 of his people had been killed.
Like, the book really plays into just how much of this war is just a cultural norm for them at this point, and just how much of their humanity is lost from being at war for thousands and thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not even just like the victim total, but just like how it affects the survivors.
And what's also kind of jarring for me is like how horrifying this war is. But then when they're not at war, they're on Earth doing Earth things, talking about the war like over gelato. Oh yeah, tomorrow I got to do this with this armies and all this stuff, and the fact that they all talked about the time when Scott and Big Barda were basically switching up. One would be at war, and the other one would be taking care of Jacob. And they go back and forth, and they're like talking to each other through FaceTime while they're at war.
I really love that, like, talking about the compartmentalization. Like, when you can just teleport across the galaxy, that makes it much, much easier to physically and mentally distance yourself from the horrors of war.
And just how almost unfazed Scott was with just the horrors around him, or the things that are basically thrust on him. Like when Orion says, we're going to have a trial, or you could just come to my house and I'll execute you. I'll do trial. Okay, we're going to do trial in 3 days. Then Scott just goes about the rest of his days like nothing is happening. He's still showering, hanging out with friends, eating, having sex with his wife.
I think, let's say, is that when they have the Booster Gold and Blue Beetle cameo?
Yes.
When they're walking out of a bar and they're all drunk waiting for an Uber?
Yes, that is not big enough for me. I need to have some blue and gold. I need more blue and gold.
I say, while I do love blue and gold, and I don't know if I want this team to tackle them, just because Tom King's track record with Booster ain't great.
Really? Tell me about it.
Well, there's Heroes in Crisis.
Oh God, never mind.
Heroes in Crisis and his Batman arc the Booster arc is the worst part of his Batman run, and it's all just leading into Heroes in Crisis.
Oh,
but I don't know how much of that I blame on him and how much I blame on editorial decisions. So
I just remember that Tom King is the guy that did the lead up to Batman's wedding.
I've been trying so hard to help you to rehabilitate Tom King's image for you. It's like, no, here is why we all thought these would be very good books.
And while I obviously have come around with Vision, and clearly also this. I mean, this is obviously not the cultural landmark that Vision is. I'm going to say that now. This is a page turner, and considering the fact that I don't like the New Gods. I will risk my fan card by stating that I don't like Kirby's creations at all. I hate Commandy. I don't really care for OMAC. I hate New Gods. Whenever they show up, it's boring to me. So yeah, look at Giddy's about to lose his cool now.
One second. We're gonna have to edit this out in a second, but give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab something.
Here he comes. Oh my God! Look at that. The thing is huge.
Yeah, hold on. Let me unblur it so everyone at home can see this in all of its glory.
Okay, I should continue my diatribe from the edit.
Here we go. It's my fourth world omnibus. It is every Jack Kirby fourth world story. I fucking love the New Gods.
I don't care for them. Granted, I've grown to love Scott in this book, and I've always loved Big Barda just because I like when they draw women differently, and Big Barda just feels like what Wonder Woman could have been. You know,
and they've always got good play. They've gotten like Scott and Barda got good play in JLI back in the 80s. Barda would show up in Gail Simone's Birds of Prey from time to time. They're probably the two, like outside of Darkseid, the two most used New Gods. Orion occasionally gets stints in Superman books, but yeah.
I will say this though, I like New Gods far more than I like the Inhumans. I can't stand the Inhumans.
That's a real easy layup there.
Yeah,
I like the Inhumans when they're in the context of other things. Like I like how Jonathan Hickman used them in his Fantastic Four run. I like the really weird Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee Inhumans mini from like 2000, 2002, 2001. Did you ever read that one?
I did not. But let's talk a little bit about Jack Kirby's timeline. I talked earlier about the fact that he started in Marvel. And then he had his thing going with Stan Lee, and he jumped to DC, created the New Gods, created Command, he created OMAC. And then apparently they mended fences. He came back to Marvel, and he created the Inhumans.
Inhumans showed up in Fantastic Four number like 53. No, like 54, maybe 55.
Yeah, wasn't it like in 1975?
No, that was in the 60s. They show up within that same era as like Black Panther.
Then I'm obviously getting my timelines completely screwed up.
He created the Eternals.
That's right. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yes.
He created the Eternals in the mid-70s.
The Eternals are just diet New Gods, and they are wildly uninteresting. Which is why the movie could be cool if they have a decent take on them, because they don't have to pay any fealty whatsoever to the source material, because it is Kirby's worst work. I will say that. Eternals is his worst.
Yeah, I've seen and devoured everything from the MCU, everything, except Inhumans. I watched like one episode, and I just never went back. And
it's real bad.
Apparently, I'm not alone in my assessment of that.
I also bounced after episode 1. I was like, so no one has their powers. Medusa doesn't have hair.
What's the point?
Yeah, it's like, I love watching superhero things where the hero doesn't have powers or costumes or anything at all that would make this a superhero show.
And we've seen this before. We've seen this particular trope used in cheap superhero movies where, you don't get the payoff until like the very last moment. Suddenly they have their powers or their costume or whatever. I'm looking at you, Smallville.
Didn't even put on the damn suit.
It's just, jeez. I mean, that's actually one of my biggest problems with Daredevil is the fact that you only get the horned red suit in one episode of season 1, throughout season 2, and none of season 3. As much as I love season 3 because it has Bullseye in it, I don't get the Daredevil I want.
That's true. You get Do-Rag Devil.
I don't want Do-Rag Devils. I mean, that's great for the guy, people that want, I want the character development of this character. Yeah, that's great, but man, give me my suit with it.
It's a damn shame that season 2 is far and away the worst season of Daredevil, because again, he's got the suit, he's got the sticky thing, he's got his stick,
he's got all the cool stuff.
Yeah,
and he could have had that during the Bullseye episodes.
But then we just got ninjas. But back to Mr. Miracle.
We digress.
Another favorite scene of mine is when they look in a mirror and it shows you the accumulation of your life, essentially.
Oh, the mirror of good.
Yeah. And Scott and Barda are just horrifically scarred when they look in it. I'm looking at it right now and I'm trying not to cry. Like, it's a heartbreaking scene.
It is heartbreaking because it just shows you that they are both victims and the result of trauma that is still there and all the scarring that it leaves behind. It is heartbreaking because they look burnt. I'm going to show you the picture of it right here. And you can just kind of take it in as they both look in the mirror here. And she goes to console him, and missing her hair, and she's equally scarred. And of course, that goes into this leads directly and perfectly into what is the last act of this, which is Darkseid has said he's going to end the Forever War and bring back release all prisoners, and even give up the anti-life equation, which is like the biggest thing that the Darkseid has ever sought out. Once he gets the anti-life equation, he can basically unmake decency and even, I guess, life at this point, which essentially
essentially anti-life strips free will. It renders life not in service to Darkseid pointless.
And this is what the basis of Infinity Crisis was
Final Crisis.
Final Crisis. There's so many crises. But he unleashes the anti-life equation upon people and heroes. And so, the whole book is them trying to not only realize that they're infected with it, because when you're infected by this anti-life equation, you take on this horrifyingly ugly personality that you can't tell the difference from your original. So you don't even know that you're acting in this malicious way, or that you're acting any different from what you normally would, which affected Wonder Woman big time in that book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she was the leader of the Furies in that book.
Yeah.
The Furies were like her, Cheetah, Giganta, and I can't remember who the fourth was. But anyways.
So Darkseid says he's going to give up all of this for Jacob.
Yes.
Jacob Free to be passed on.
And it should be noted, at this point, Scott has killed Orion and is now High Father.
Yeah. So I mean, he could stop millions and millions and millions of deaths, but he has to give his child freely up to the very world that traumatized him, like in the Mirror shows. And of course, this also goes back to the main trope of this book, is the fact that he dealing with the trauma of his life and then going back to Earth and just living his life. I mean, he's given this ultimatum. He still goes back, and you still see scenes of him and Barda just hanging out on the couch, and she's messing with her version of a phone, which is like a mother box.
Mother box.
She's texting on her
Jack
mother
Kirby
box.
predicting smartphones 40 years in advance.
Right?
So 30 years since smartphones started in like 07.
And even though they're showing this and it's a casual scene, Big Barda has a very grim look on her face. And Scott's like, we know we're going to have to do this, and we're going to have to give up the kid, and we're going to do this tomorrow, but we're going to get out of this, and we're going to kill him. And you can see the smile broadening on her face. And she goes, and I'm probably going to die doing this, but I'm still going to do it. And Big Barda, without missing a beat, I'm in. And they show up.
Kids.
They show up.
And they bring a veggie tray.
The veggie tray. I love this trope.
My beloved mundane Darkseid stuff is, and we'll show the page right here.
Yes.
Darkseid gets his carrot, and dips it in the ranch, takes a bite, and dips it again.
Yes.
Double dip Darkseid is better than any use of him in Jeff Johns' Justice League run.
And this is the same thing that they use. They use the veggie tray when they're also dealing with Orion and the execution.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the execution of Scott Free with a veggie tray.
It's become a thing at conventions for people to get Tom and Mitch to sign veggie trays now.
So Darkseid, true to his word, stops everything. And since he cannot unknow the anti-life equation, he basically gets rid of his application of it, which is the Omega Beams. And he tears out one of his eyes and throws over to Big Barda, who squishes it. And the entire time, Darkseid knows. Darkseid knows that Scott Free is going to come here to kill him. And him and Desaad is like, you have come here to kill God, which is what they commonly refer to. You were here to kill God. And Scott's like, how am I going to do that? Am I going to escape him to death? That's all I got. I got no weapons. I'm a normal guy that escapes things. And he's like, you have still come to kill God. How am I going to do that? Well, all right. Good point. And so when Darkseid gives up his eyes, the stroller that nobody inspected with Big Barda suddenly comes up, and it's like this crazy Omega Beam mother box to the bottom side of the stroller dishes out and hits broadsides Darkseid with it. And Gideon, if you want to express what happens after that.
So yeah, Scott beats Darkseid to death. Just repeatedly stabs him in the face.
Oh, no. That happens after. He pulls out the knife that can cut gods.
That's right.
Made of Orion. And he stabs him in the eye because the stroller doesn't work. So basically, he kills Darkseid. He's successfully escaped the situation.
And then Metron rolls in and reveals that there is another world. And that's kind of where we get like the climate, what the book has all been leading up towards, is maybe Scott did successfully kill himself. Maybe he is trapped in some sort of anti-life, like feedback loop. Forager shows up and says, "You're just in hell forever." It's like you kill one devil, and then another one shows up, and then another one shows up, and
that's it.
Yeah.
But then he gets Oberon. Isn't Oberon the one that tells him, hey, by the way, you're in heaven. You have all the things that you want. You know, you got your wife, you got your kid, Darkseid is dead, the wars are over, and you can relax. And then the whole series basically ends on this beat. You know,
and you don't have to escape. Like, why is this any less real? The particular line is that I really love. Let me find it. Hey, Scott, listen. That other world Metron showed you, all those crises and continuities that never make sense, that world full of superheroes who always end up hunky-dory, you think that's more real than that wife of yours, that kid? It's so good. Like, yeah, in a world of superheroes, like, what's the difference?
Yeah,
in a world where there are 52 other Earths, why is one reality any more real than another?
And like I told you when I was reading this, that I felt like from issue 1 that Scott was in some kind of a fugue state. He was basically either trapped in his mind or he was put in an artificial construct, and he had to free himself. I thought that was the whole part of the book, is that he had to escape the ultimate unescapable thing, which was a false reality.
But
I guess to a degree, let's
say he escaped the mundane rat race of superhero-dom, of superhero comics, of having an issue come out every month and having to deal with that threat and having an existing status quo that never changes. He got to have a kid. How often do superheroes get to do that? And the kid stays alive, you know? Or does gets aged up to 12 to 17 years and sent into space?
Yeah, I mean, and then the last page outright just says, "Oh, hey, by the way, there's not going to be another book until there's another Mr. Miracle, so enjoy."
Yeah, the Mr. Miracle series will not be continued. Its new and thrilling successor will be on sale soon, which is Strange Adventures, which is also shaping up to be very good. Don't know if it'll be as good as this book, because this is one of my favorite books ever, but yeah, I also want to, now that we're kind of at the end of here, something I forgot to bring up. Every issue ends with the closing narration from an original Jack Kirby Mr. Miracle issue, which is such a good touch. I adore it. The first issue, I think, calls back to Paranoid Pill, which is one of the best Mr. Miracle issues. But, and I mean, you can, it's all very clearly like classic Kirby narration. The opening page is, "You will have to decide when you confront the strangest, most incredible hero ever to appear in comics. You will see what he does. You will wonder how he does it. But always waiting in the wings are his two greatest enemies, the men who challenge him, and Death himself." meets Mr. Miracle. Like,
Yeah.
its reframing of classic caption boxes is so.
I noticed that, and I was like, because it's kind of hard to figure out where the issues begin and the issues end until you get the very obvious cover page. Well, I gotta say that sometimes when we do these, having to go through 12 issues of a book I've never read before, and because I'm an awful procrastinator, I always do it in one day, every single time. That when I opened up this book, it's like, crap, I'm going to slug through Jack Kirby stuff. 12 issues of it. 320 pages of it. This is going to be painful. But I trust Gideon. And I trust Tom King. Let's see where this goes. And I just sat there. What I thought I was going to read 30 pages. And then I was just going to go about my daily thing. And before I knew it, I was 85 pages in. Because I was just going.
It's an incredibly addicting read.
Yeah.
And if you haven't read it before, do it. Like, I know we kind of go through the whole basic story beats and all in these things, but there's so much stuff that we don't get to cover. And there's just, book is filled with just great little character moments that just endear you to Scott and Barda. And we didn't even really talk about how well the action sequences are plotted out. But, like, good Lord, Mitch Gerrits can block out an action.
Excellent.
There's,
and let's also
multiple
talk
ones.
about Big Barda's butt.
We can't talk enough about it. But there's a couple of action sequences, and I'll try to find one to put on here, where they maintain the 9-panel grid, which is a very fun little visual device to signify Scott being behind bars. But aside from that, where they'll have just like a landscape, and they'll have Scott and Barda moving throughout it. So it's like one image,
almost like a scroller.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
A video game scroller. We could use the page when they're arguing about chopping their living room in half and making a new room.
I really love the one where they're going through the tents in Granny Goodness's camp, and the sound effect is sneak, 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 sneak.
Oh, I love that. Fight, fight, fight.
Yeah, it's a really fun one. That I can totally see with the Hawkeye comparisons, because that feels like a very Fraction and Aha page. Like, it's got that same kind of beat of physical comedy to it.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, as dark and intense as this book gets, also has hysterical moments. Like, again, the dark side with the veggie tray. That's an all-timer.
Also, Orion also went for the carrot in the ranch, showing you that he is a son of Darkseid.
Yeah. There's a lot of really fun stuff, a lot of fun foreshadowing, again, of like maybe something's not right, with Orion glitching into Darkseid occasionally, which I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah, the strange trope of seeing the face of God. Now, as this metamorphosized into, for me personally, what the face of God was being forcibly talked about is Darkseid. But I knew, in a metaphor sense, the face of God, in a lot of literature, is the faces of someone's child. So it became clear to me that the face of God was Jacob, as he was looking into Jacob's face. And I thought they were going to hammer that home, but they left it to us.
There's the mirror page, because they mirror that face of God page from when Scott's a kid. Like, at the end of the book, they do a perfect mirror of that page. So that's as close. This ain't a Jeff Johns comic. They're not hitting you over the head with what things mean here.
And also, it felt like the story that Funky Flashman made with Jacob was basically the answer.
Yeah.
Of everything, It felt like he was telling him, hey, this is what you should do. Take this person who's not used to this love and give him his love, and he will give you the keys to this victory. And I was trying to wonder where I was going to see the payback on that. And maybe I just didn't look deep enough, and it's still in there. And maybe that, of course, necessitates a second read.
Yes. Always reread it. It's a book that I revisit myself from time to time. But I think that'll pretty well wrap up our coverage for Mr. Miracle, one of my personal favorite books of the past decade, maybe even of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Casey, what you thinking for our next read one? I gave you the option of Flintstones last week. That one's still definitely on the table.
You did.
We could do a Marvel story this time because we've been kind of switching off on Marvel and DC. If you have any jumping out at you that you want me to read.
You know, I don't know if this constitutes an entire story, but it definitely is something that I truly love, and it comes from my childhood. I would love for you to read all of the Bob Layton, no, not Bob Layton, but Bob McCloud New Mutants issues, the first 17 issues.
Oh, yeah, I can totally do that. I have the Epic collection for that.
Awesome. Now we're talking about, you can go the full 18 if you really want to read Demon Baron, taint yourself with
the best New Mutants run. You know what? I should revisit those because you know me. I'm my point of view is always that New Mutants doesn't really click until Bill Sienkiewicz comes on.
Yes, and hold on, let me grab this real quick. We can start it. I hope this doesn't get unblurred, or it does get unblurred. We can start with a Marvel graphic novel, and then just basically that can start off, and then you can go into the first issue and go into the issues where Karma disappears. They deal with the Sentinels, the Nova Roma storyline, and of course it ends with the Hellion storyline, which I thought was super cool. So,
isn't Warpath starts off as a Hellion, right?
He does.
Cool. As I was remembering that right. I can never keep the original Hellion straight because there's like what Empath, Warpath,
Empath, Cat's Eye, Terra, Roulette, and Jetstream.
Jetstream is the one that's like Diet Cannonball, right?
He's the
or Cannonball's the Diet one because he can like turn.
Yeah, Jetstream has got powers, but his powers. He's one of those uncontrolled mutants where he needs technology to help it focus it, or he'll burn himself. So he's got like cyborg parts in him that refocus his.
He's on, the one, the Bill Sienkiewicz. It's Bill Sienkiewicz's first cover for it, where it's Cannonball and him are flying side by side.
It's that red cover, and they're like do, and then Jetstream's knocking him, and Cannonball's doing the reacting. Which I actually love that cover. I love that cover.
You know what? This is actually great setting up our next two because we'll do those, and then we can read all the Sienkiewicz ones.
Oh my god! So we're gonna look into. New Mutants graphic novel number 4, Marvel graphic novel number 4, and then 1 through 17, which is about 18 issues. But it's like 80s stuff, so it's 80s paged, so you'll be able to tear through it real quick. We're talking like 22 pages a shot.
Alternatively, they are Chris Claremont issues, so they are incredibly dense.
Well, this is true. There is a lot to talk about, and it'll give me a chance to actually revisit the first 4 issues, which I only really read like maybe once or twice.
And we can discuss the wider Marvel Universe debut of everyone's favorite mutants, Team America.
Oh, yes. Yes. We're going to talk about Team America. We will talk about Team America. We will talk about the Marauder. We will talk about Are You Ready? And Lobo. And I forgot the name of that really white guy.
Yeah. It's going to be a good time. I'm excited.
Honcho, Are You Ready? And Lobo. That's what their names are.
And they're collected in 2, I believe, currently in print, Epic collections, where you've got I'm trying to remember what it's called I think it's Renewal is New Mutants Epic Collection Volume 1, and Demon Bear Saga is Volume 2. So,
and Reign's Fairy Story.
Yes, as Bill Sienkiewicz issue.
Okay, granted, I grew up with those issues too. It was just such a jarring artistic shift that it took a while for me to catch up, but I still devoured them.
I'm excited for you to revisit them.
Okay, excellent.
Well, I think we will see you guys next week talking about New Mutants Renewal.
And hopefully, maybe in a couple weeks, we can actually start looking at some comics.
Maybe. Casey, you want to take us out?
Yes, indeed. Keep us rolling. This is, show number 27, 28 or something like that. I think our 3rd or 4th at-home show. We're probably going to be doing the at-home thing for quite some time until the world start coming back to some level of normality. Check us out on our Patreon page down below in the links. We've also got a Instagram page, which we'll be putting images of Mr. Miracle and, of course, Mr. Miracle doing miracle things, and probably even Big Barda's butt is going to show up in there too. We got my page on Facebook, which Facebook.com My producer's telling us that this is episode 30. Thank you for that. But back to what I was saying, I have my own page at My Comic Book Facts, facebook.com, My Comic Book Facts, where I talk about characters and character ideas for the casual fan who is just like an MCU watcher, not really a comic book reader, but still wants to understand what these characters are all about. I'm definitely there for you about that stuff. What else we got going on here? What other stuff we got? We got a Twitter page. Yeah, we got that. I think we hit up all the social medias at some page. You can even catch us on Facebook at Hazardous Materials. We base all of our episodes there. So if you want to just subscribe to our page on Facebook, we'll always let you know when we do stuff. Have you got anything else for us?
No, I think that'll do it. We'll see you guys in a week.
All right. Adios.